Ladies and gentlemen, I've got some good news for you. We are no longer in the Marriott Hotel. We are now in Quincy's Joint. Ever been to Quincy's Joint? Let me tell you why we're so proud and so pleased about this. My name is Ralph Simon, and thanks to Neil Dixon and his fantastic Canadian Music Week team, I want to give you a little bit of background before we brought on Q to Q's Joint. More than 20 years ago, Canadian Music Week reached out to try and get Quincy Jones to come to Toronto to appear before our delegates. We failed, and we failed many times since, until this year. It's more than just a triumph, because it also shows the tenacity and the fortitude of Neil Dixon and the Canadian Music Week team. And we're also pleased to say that today's interview with Quincy is being sponsored by Jazz FM 91 here in Toronto. So let's give them a hand. And we'd also like to acknowledge the assistance of Universal Music in helping us to bring this great man to town. And of course, when you look at someone who can interview Quincy and do justice to somebody that has had such a comprehensive musical, artistic, theatrical, television, film, and political career, someone here who would be the right person, we felt, would be Ross Porter, who is the CEO of Jazz FM 91. Where is Ross? Ross, would you like to just come on stage? So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to say, here in Quincy's Joint, give a roaring welcome to Quincy Jones.
Thank you. Merci mille fois.
So what do you want to do now? What do you want to do now?
Whatever you want to do.
I want to start with Canada and your most recent discovery, if you will, Nikki Yanofsky.
Okay. Well, Canada goes back to 1952. Nikki mother wasn't born then. We'll start with Nikki.
Yeah. What was there about Nikki that got you interested?
We have a amazing group of probably the most talented kids on the planet. I'm not kidding, you know, I've heard everybody. From 11 years old on up to about 28. From Cuba, from Illinois, from Canada, Slovakia. We got a 16-year-old gypsy guitar player from Slovakia, Andreas Vardy. They are amazing. He played like George Benson when he was 10 years old. We traveled everywhere. Hiroshima, Tokyo, Korea, Poland, Sweden, Montreux Festival, and it's the most exciting thing in the world, because when I was young, people like Clark Terry, Benny Carty, Ray Charles, they all basically put me on their shoulders to tell me how to do it right, you know. And that comes naturally to me with young people now. And it's just such a pleasure to be with young people that, especially like Nikki, Yanofsky, boy, she's ridiculous, because she brings all the roots. She's 19 to 20 years old. I'm sorry, Nikki. She's elderly now. She started, when I met her, she was singing like Ella Fitzgerald. Ridiculous. I mean, she's been singing like that since I think she's about 4 or 5 years old. But this lady is scary. And what I love is she's bringing all of the roots of the best we had in the past and putting it in the present. And that's very important, you know. We keep growing, because originally, that's how jazz stayed so powerful. King Oliver influenced Louis Armstrong. He copied him, became himself, and then Laurie Eldridge copied Louis Armstrong, became himself. Dizzy copied him, and that's why all the roots stay in there, because if you know where you come from, it's easy to get where you're going. And that's when you're young, you learn why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You're supposed to listen as twice as much as you talk. I tell my kids that all the time. You can talk a lot when you get my age. I'm 81 now.
I don't think two guys like us can...
Nikki is the bomb.
And the new album is out now. Yes, her new album is out.
And she's got a new album out, and all I can say is she's frightening. Just don't fail to listen to her, because this lady is just starting, and she is frightening. I mean, I watched her last night, and I see her growth exponentially, and it's just incredible. And you know what? When I studied in Paris with Nadia Boulanger, she said something I'll never forget. She said, Quincy, your music can never be more or less than you are as a human being. And Nikki is a great, great human being, as all the other kids are in Global Gumbo. And I hope you get to see her real soon. Great kids, honey. They are the future.
You mentioned Nadia Boulanger. Could you talk a little bit about her role in your life? Nadia Boulanger, can you talk a little bit about the role she played in your life?
Yes, Nadia Boulanger was Romanian, Russian, and French. The most astounding woman I ever met in my life. And she was a mentor to Stravinsky, taught Aaron Copland, Philip Glass, Daniel Barenbaum, Leonard Bernstein. And I met Stravinsky there when I was working with her in the 50s. And what a lady. She was strong, really strong. She's the first woman to conduct the New York Philharmonic. And I met Igor there. Do you know what it feels like to meet Igor Stravinsky? It's unbelievable. Moldavian, I mean, like one of my gods, you know. And it's just a trip I'm glad I took. And she said, I have to be careful with jazz musicians, old Quincy, because you guys, you shack up with music first, and then you court it and marry it later. Which is kind of true, really, because I was working in nightclubs, 5 clubs a night with Ray Charles when I was 13 and 14 years old. And then I decided I wanted to go to France to run a record company for Eddie Barclay and study with Nadia Boulanger. And she took me to brass, woodwind, strings, and percussion with symphony orchestra. And I wanted to learn how to write for everything. And she said, God only gave us 12 notes. Until he gives us 13, I want you to know what everybody did with those 12 notes. You realize that? Brahms, Bach, Beethoven, Basie, Bird, Bo Diddley, everybody had the same 12 notes. It's astounding. And I don't get the chance to look back much, but when I look back and I think about that, it's insane, really. You know, just insane. But that's the way it is.
I don't think you and I can have a conversation without talking about jazz in some detail here. And I just want to go back to the days of 52nd Street in New York. And can you just talk a little bit about the importance of 52nd Street?
Well, I wasn't in diapers then, but I was 18 years old with Lionel Hampton when I first went to New York. And I think my first night in New York, I was just, if you're in Seattle, you can't imagine those days. We didn't have television or anything. We had no way of connecting with our idols like Charlie Parker and learning all the new licks that Thelonious Monk and Dizzy and Miles and all those guys wrote. We knew all of them. And they'd come through Seattle, we'd just like run them crazy and just question them to the wall, you know. And when I went there the first time, I was in Boston, I was going to school, and I lived across the street from the Hi-Hat, which is a club, and I met Oscar Pettiford, and he wanted to hear some of my compositions and arrangements, and so I gave him a couple. He said, yeah, man, I want you to come to New York. And that's all I wanted to hear, because I could meet Charlie Parker and Dizzy and all those guys, Sonny Stitt. And so I went down to do 2 arrangements, $17. Who cared about money or fame then? You know, we couldn't give a damn, you know. And so we recorded, and we went to the Embers. Embers was a place where Art Tatum was playing. And after the show, Oscar got a little drunk. He was Indian, you know, half Indian, half black. And I'm sitting in the back seat with Oscar. All of a sudden, I hear the car start. I look up front. Al Hibbler's in this seat, and Art Tatum is starting the motor up. And they're both blind. Oscar, anyway, it was the most incredible time I ever had in my life. And I went to the Blue Note one night. It was Diane Carroll's husband. Monty Kaye owned that. And I was watching Billy Taylor and Mingus. And behind me, I heard a little guy said, I got to know him as one of his and my best friends, Miles Davis, you know. And I heard him behind me, and he said, yeah, I heard this little dude, man, trying to play like me, man. And I just cut a record called Kingfish, and he and Sinatra were just alike, more bark than bite, though, but they were toughies. And he said, yeah, I heard this little dude. He said mofo, you know. I heard him trying to play like me, which I was trying to play like him and Dizzy, you know, but Miles was easier to play like than Dizzy was. And just one thing just led to another, and you just meet and grow, make mistakes and grow. And it's, I never looked back until I hit 80, you know. Man, it's frightening what happened because you can't plan that kind of stuff in your life to. We worked with Billie Holiday at 14, worked with Cab Calloway at 15. Ray Charles and I came up together at 14 and 17. And then you worked from Louis Armstrong to Ella, Sarah, Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Paul Simon, Michael Jackson, everybody. Big Maybelle, rhythm and blues, everything. And so from very beginning, we had to play everything. Sousa, Debussy, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, shadishes, pop music. Pop music was different back then. To each his own, to each his own, to each his own. You remember those? Anybody remember that? No. I hope not.
So I want to, when you were on the road with these older guys, when you were out with Lionel and what have you, you were out on the road with older guys. Tell me the story about the wardrobe tips that you got from them. About about taking care of your wardrobe.
That's a good one. Because, as I said about the 2 ears and 1 mouth, I knew how to use that then. And I watched the dudes that have been out there 30 years, like William Makel, Bobby Plater, who's the Straw Boss musical director. He was also for Basie too. He wrote Jersey Bounce. And I watched these guys, and it was amazing because everything they did, making $17 a night. You take us to Father Divine's, 15 cents for lunch, you know, veal stew. You have to say peace when you walk in. And they put their pants and fold them and put them under the mattress because we couldn't afford cleaning, and a wash and dry shirt in the bathroom, and your coat there too, and then turn the steam on, the steam that, and steam your handkerchief and put it on a mirror. And the next day you pull it off, it's just like it's been ironed and stuff. But you know, these guys were unbelievable. And everything they did, man, because we were 300 miles a night. And at that time, Lionel Hampton was bigger than Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong used to open for us. And Basie and Duke with ABC booking, Hampton was the biggest guy. And I know everybody feels like Bill Haley and Elvis Presley started rock and roll, but I'm telling you, in the 40s, Louis Jordan and Lionel Hampton did that, man. I was there. I'm telling you. I met Elvis in '54, and Tommy Dorsey wouldn't even play with him, you know.
Why did you stop playing the trumpet?
What?
Why did you stop playing the trumpet?
Because I stopped playing trumpet because I had to. I had 2 aneurysms, serious brain operation. They cut my head open twice. It's the weakness in the main artery to the brain. And that happened when I was 42 in 1975. And they put a metal clip Milton Heifetz created. And if you go through a metal detector, I can't go through customs or play a horn ever again. But what are the alternatives? I want to stay vertical.
So just in terms of the impact of blowing on the trumpet is something that the impact of blowing on the trumpet.
It'll blow that metal thing away. No, it doesn't work.
So after that.
Neither does magnetic things like customs and MRIs too.
So in terms of the healing, the recovery process for you, you went off to Fiji, to one of the islands that Marlon Brando owns.
Yes, he did. He sent me to his home in Tetiaroa. And that was right after Color Purple, because Color Purple was the first film I produced, you know, and it was a lot of work, you know. I discovered also the power of being underestimated then in our business. That's the most powerful position you can have.
What do you mean by that?
It gives you strength, because everybody in town was saying, what is this idiot Quincy Jones thinking about? He thinks he's going to get Steven Spielberg to direct his first movie. Steven was a $5.5 million director. E.T., Close Encounters, everything you can imagine, Jaws. And Guess what? He did the movie for me for $84,000.
Okay,
And
but
he wanted an Oscar, and this was very important.
did he get something on the back end,
wanted,
though?
huh?
Did he get something on the back end?
No.
No?
Oh, yeah, but it's his company, you know.
Okay.
It was through Amblin, you know. But I didn't care about that back then. And that's, at first he was going to use Diana Ross and Richard Pryor. And I said, Stephen, with all due respect, they bring too much baggage to the picture. We need all purple people. You know, said, well, you better find somebody. And I heard about this girl, Alice Walker told me about this lady up in San Francisco working on the streets, doing these impersonations, Whoopi Goldberg. So I had her come to Amblin, and she did 17 vignettes from junkies to valley girls. Oh my God, you know, everything. And Stephen was so in love with it. Then that weekend he called up, because he still hadn't committed to do the movie, and he said, Quincy, she wants to do, what's the one with the Rolling Stone title?
Jumpin' Jack Flash?
Jumpin' Jack, thank you very much. Go on, man, thank you. And he said, if she does that film, I'm not directing the film. That's when I knew I had him, you know. So I called Mike Nichols, who we signed to Second City in 1958 when I was with Mercury, and Mike to put her on Broadway for 4 months to keep her out of the traffic, you know. And it all worked out. Then I went to Chicago for Michael Jackson to be a witness in a plagiarism case. And in the morning, I saw this lady on Chicago AM. And I said, if she can act, that's Sophia. You know, it took me 3 days to find a name. I called Mary D. and all these people. It was Oprah. And her name backwards spelled Harpo. That's who she played his husband. He was the husband of her in the movie. Anyway, I sent the thing back to Stephen, and that all worked out. And we got 11 nominations. All the girls in the movie, Margaret, Whoopi, and Oprah got nominations. But the Academy guys, the 350 Academy guys, the Blue Ribbon Committee of Directors were very jealous of Stephen. Always, they gave it to Gandhi instead of E.T. They were very jealous. He was so successful, him and George Lucas, you know. And so they didn't nominate him. So how do you get 11 nominations in a film and don't have a director there? So anyway, Stephen asked me to be his date to go to the Directors Guild, who usually determines who wins the Oscar. That's 7,800 of them. So we go, sit right next to Sidney Pollack. I had done his first movie, and he was the competition with Out of Africa. And Stephen wins. Now we're in trouble because he wins. We can't get any vote, any Oscars at all because he's not nominated. So they give him the Irving Thalberg Award the next year, and he wins it for Schindler's List the next year. But it was, you know, life is the most amazing journey. I never looked back to it until I hit 80, but boy, you'll see.
I want to go back to this recovery time with Marlon Brando on the island. Tell me about that and getting to know Marlon Brando.
Well, man, I've known Marlon Brando since '51. I knew him way before that. You know, this was the '80 to '85. You know, I met Marlon in 1951. I came out of Birdland as Sidney P., Belafonte, and Marlon. He'd just done Streetcar Named Desire, red fedora on, just smoked a joint. And he was going up to Harlem to Tommy's Paradise Lounge, whatever it was, Tommy Smalls. And he didn't ask the brothers to go with him. He said, I'm going, man. And this white kid in from Iowa, he didn't give a damn. He was high, too. So he goes there. He was a good dancer. He studied with Catherine Dunham and played congas, you know. We used to go to Palladium every Sunday with Tito Puente. And, because, you know, salsa was invented by I know I'm rambling here, by the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans, but he was born in New York, you know, in the 60s, you know. He used to have those cockroach killers on, those little thin shoes, you know. Anyway, where were we?
Marlon Brando, but I want you to tell me the story about Marlon teaching one of his kids how to act.
No, my kid.
Oh, your kid, okay.
I went down to, I knew he had a kid with a Mexican lady, one of many. He was a wild
You should be a
dude.
diplomat.
At his memorial, Everybody was there, from Nicholson to Warren Beatty to Sean Penn, everybody. And these guys, young guys, had never seen Brando. Brando was the most charming, good-looking guy you ever saw in your life. And he'd hold that smile back, and then he'd lay it on you, and you were wasted after that. But they asked somebody to describe him in one word, and they said nanotechnology, because he was out there, man. And so I took his son, Amico, down to San Diego. We got our first platinum record on Thriller. And Michael met him and everything else, and they bonded, you know. And he hired him. Amico still works for the Jackson family. Beautiful kid, you know. And so Brando wanted to pay me back. I said, you don't have to pay me back, man. That was natural, organic love, you know, and bonding. So he says, no, I want to teach your son to dance. I said, man, he's the #1 break dancer in Sweden. He's Swedish, you know. And they're on the front page of the paper every day. He said, okay, then I'll give him acting lessons. So we go over to his place. He's got on this kimono, Japanese kimono, ponytail on, everything else. And we sit down at the table. This is just before I went away to his place in Tetiaroa. And I said, I'd like to tape it, you know, because he's giving my son an acting lesson. And my son's 17 then, QD3. He says, now, you know, acting is very important in television and movies. But when it's most important, it's, Go ahead. It's when you've been out with another lady all night, and it's time to go home to see your wife. My son's 17, he doesn't know what he's talking about, man. He says, first, and he's very detailed. He said, you pull down behind the house, turn the motor off at the top of the hill, and then slide down back to the back steps, you know. Take your shoes off, you know. My son's looking at me like he's crazy. Take your shoes off and then start to tip up the steps, you know. And he gets halfway up, and his wife is sitting there with her hands on her hip, giving him a cold, hard stare. This is when acting is important. And there's silence on the tape. He says, you got one take. And there's more silence. He says to his wife, damn, so happy to see you. I broke my foot. I mean, it was the silliest night I ever had in my life. I got this tape, and Mike Medavoy calls me all the time because everybody's after it, you know, because it's really a tape to teach you how to be Marlon Brando, not an actor, because he tries to pretend he has no science, you know, but he is so science-oriented as anybody that's good in their job with left and right brain has to be, with emotion and intellect, you know. And he knew the 80-millimeter lens. He knew how to emphasize the word with letting the key light make a glint in your left eye. He knew how to make that happen. He knew how to make every take be the one he wanted. He wouldn't make it in the same so the director couldn't use anything but what he wanted. And if Glenn Ford's standing behind him in dialogue, he'd stand 4 feet instead of 2 because he wanted to take him out of the spotlight. Marlon would not turn his head, but he had it, and sometimes he'd have the script, when they do over-the-shoulder shot, have the script on the other actor's face, man. And he was reading the script off of his face, you know. But he was unbelievable. And don't talk about the other sides of him, my God.
What other side?
The flip side.
And did you see that side?
I saw everything. I mean, he was like my brother, man. I got 100 tapes from Marlon. And he's just one of the most special human beings I've ever met in my life. He really is. And brilliant. And well, you saw what he did with the Godfather. He sent an Indian woman up there to get his award. This cat was and he believed in it. He knew, he understood all of the political situations and historical things. He understood everything. And it's just one of the joys of my life. Well, I got some beautiful friends, but he was definitely one of them. Sidney Poitier, too. You know.
I want to run some names by you of people that you've worked with or people that just might have come into your world and just get your reaction. Frank Sinatra.
This ring I wear is Frank left me. It's this is family crest from Sicily. He wore that for 40 years, but that was like going to another planet. It started in 1958, I was working in Paris, studying and running this record company, Barclay Records. And one day they say, Grace Kelly's office called today. Mr. Sinatra wants you to bring your house band down to Monte Carlo for a benefit at the sporting club. And I had a 55-piece house band, the best string players, woodwind players, Ravel-oriented. I was studying orchestration then. And we had Kenny Clark on drums. We had Stephen Grappelli from Django Reinhardt. We had Lucky Thompson and Don Bias. We took all of them down there by train, and we played for him. And I'd never seen anybody like that before. I'd worked with anybody like that before. So we expected him to come from the side of the stage like most people do when they go on stage. He's just an oblong big room, and he's coming from the back, and he's high-fiving with Cary Grant and Old Coward and all these people. And I'm nervous. We're playing ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, for the man to go along. We're doing that to play him on. And I'm stupid enough to think that the applause is going to run out. No way. And so he takes his time, then he comes further, and he stops, and he gets a cigarette case out, and lights a cigarette, and comes up to the stand. And we go into Come Fly With Me after that. And he, after Fly Me, da-da-da-da-da, and he takes a puff on the cigarette. Now, they cut all the lights down to a single spotlight on him. And Herman Leonard, thank God, took a picture of this. He got it, because it was like magic. He said, when I get you up there, no smoke. Where the air is rare. And all the smoke came out. It was like a magician. I'm going to stop conducting, man. I couldn't even believe it, But this man was like from another planet, and I cannot tell you the experiences we had. It was just unbelievable. In every way, from food to wine to margaritas to ladies, everything. He was just, woo. 7 Jack Daniels a night.
Let's talk a little about you referenced ladies. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the ladies. What trouble did you guys get into, you and Frank?
You must be joking.
It was a test balloon.
We saw Ruth Roman, Ava Gardner, Lana Turner, Marilyn Monroe. And see, I didn't think Marilyn was that hot because I was dating Mamie Van Doren back then. Mamie would put her away. Anybody here know Mamie Van Doren? Please, man. Swedish and Cherokee. Give me a break. Woo. I was 19, she was 18. Know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? Blow Marilyn away. God bless her.
You ever seen anyone get on the bad side of Frank?
What?
You ever seen anyone get on the bad side of Frank?
Frank was bipolar, and he loves you to pieces. One example. I went over in 1968 to do the score to Italian Job with Michael Caine, who happens to be my celestial twin. We were born the same year, month, day, and hour. And he taught me Cockney and all this stuff. And when I was coming, my son was born that same year. And Mia told him I was over there. When I came back, sorry?
No, I think it's just someone speaking in the not to you, not to us.
So when I get back, it was 3 months late because my son was born, and I get back, all the mail that was gone while I was gone, that came while I was gone, on top of it was a letter from Sinatra Enterprises, and the letter had a note in there. It says, "Dear Q3," which is my son, "let Uncle Frank welcome you into this world with a college education." He had a bond for his whole college education, and said, "knowing it'll be a far better world than the one we messed up." The most touching thing in the world. And I called him up, Frank, man, go to hell. He had that just like Miles, exactly like Miles, but more bark than bite, though, because they were two of my closest friends, Miles. But they knew how to get gruff. They know how to shake you up, man. But Frank, if he didn't like you, he'd roll over you in a Mack truck in reverse, man. And I've seen him go crazy, We usually don't play. He was waiting for us one night at the hotel after Bass and I went to see Billy Eckstine. And he said, why do you guys take me with you? I said, thought you wanted to be with your homies. He said, you're my homies. Don't leave me here again, And he was waiting for us one night on a golf cart with a whole tray full of margaritas, about 40 of them, and drove through a glass wall. Now, he was fearless, but he was at the height of what musical integrity is about. The best songs, the best arrangers, the best time I ever had in my life, It's just, memories are just unbelievable. And I'm still in touch with Tina and Nancy Sr., they did the greatest people, and Frank Jr. We went to Space Museum 3 or 4 years ago to celebrate all the astronauts, the 50th anniversary, and I had a 100-piece orchestra to do Fly Me to the Moon with Frank Jr., and it was just amazing. Memories are really so valuable, aren't they? Jesus Christ, it's amazing. I remember my memories here. I was 18 with Lionel Hampton, and we were playing the theater here, and I went to the Massey Hall concert to Charlie Parker. It's unbelievable. But this is a hip city, you know that. You remember Benny Weinstein? No. Okay.
This concert at Massey Hall.
One of your legends, though.
Talk about why this concert at Massey Hall was so important.
Huh?
Tell people why this concert at Massey Hall back in the 50s was so important.
Well, it turned out to be, at the time you don't know it, but it turned out to be a legendary concert, But it was Charlie Parker, come on, man. Anything can happen there. And they showed me the contract that day, and I think all 6 guys got about $1,100, But it's amazing, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. It sounds silly, but I tell you, it's deep in my heart,
Who gave you the nickname Q?
Frank. When he called me after the 4 years and we worked in Monte Carlo, he called me from Hawaii and says, hey, Q, this is Francis. Nobody ever called me that before. This is Francis. And I heard the record you did. I'm directing a film over here called None But the Brave in Kauai. But I heard a record you did with Basie last year, and you took Bart Howard's In Other Words, which was originally a waltz. He said, I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it like you did it with it's going from 3/4 to 4/4. And he said, would you consider doing a record with me and Basie? I said, man, is the Pope a Catholic? Are you crazy? I was so happy, that's like a dream for a arranger and conductor. It's a dream. And I was over there 2 days later, and I did Fly Me to the Moon first, which they played on the moon in 1969, Buzz Aldrin, and was with him till he died, It just was amazing, amazing human being in the world. Amazing. But they remind me of each other, Miles and Frank and Brando and Sidney P. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing guys. Dizzy Gillespie, please, all individuals,
I want to talk a little bit about one of the unsung heroes. And I want to talk about one of the unsung heroes, one of the guys that played a significant role in your life, but not everyone has heard of him, and that's Clark Terry.
That's just what I was going to say. and thank God, God does not miss anything. Because last month we were at the Tribeca Film Festival, and these 2 incredible human beings, young kids, one was a drummer from Australia, Hicks, and he didn't even know he could make a film, but he shot 450 hours of film on Clark Terry mentoring a young blind Japanese piano player, Justin Kaufman. And I had studied with Clark. I was his first student 70 years ago, and Justin was his last student. So they made a film based on that. And it's the most touching thing I've ever seen in my life. I cried all the way through it because I didn't know how it had been edited,
Didn't you finance the film? Did you finance that film? You were the executive producer of it, were you not?
Yeah, exactly. No, we did a lot of things. Whatever we get, just get to the mainland, With film, you do whatever you have to do, to get it made, because it is probably the hardest challenge in life to get a film. All these elements together, take the editors and all that stuff to do it, But it is so touching. We cried all the way through it, and we won.
Nice.
We won the festival. Thank you. And won the festival, and as soon as it was over, we got 4 standing ovations, everybody crying, and I got a call immediately from Harvey Weinstein, and then Ted Sarandos, who's married to my best friend's daughter, from Netflix. And my daughter called me from Sony. They called her to tell her, don't sign with Harvey because he's a gangster. I said, that's what I want. Because Harvey knows what to do. And Harvey sent his business guys over with my VP over there, Adam Fell, to put the deal together. And it was over, like in the same night we won, you know. And Harvey said, see you at the Oscars. It was so touching because I've never seen so much truth in my life on the screen as this movie. Keep on keeping on. If you get a chance to check it out.
It was here a couple of weeks ago at the Hot Docs Film Festival. It was here a couple of weeks ago at the film festival.
Yeah, it'll touch you whether you're a musician or not. It's just humanity, you know, and that's the truth.
But I just want to tie up a loose end on this about Clark and tell me why people should care about him.
Well, Clark is one of the greatest trumpet players that ever lived, you know. He influenced Miles. He's from East St. Louis. He was with the Territory Band from St. Louis. Then he was in the Great Lake Naval Band. Then he was with Basie, Charlie Barnett. When I first heard him, he was with Charlie Barnett, with Maynard Ferguson. Maynard Ferguson from here, Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah. And they blew my mind as a trumpet player. You know, I never heard anybody play that high in my life, you know. And Chuck Terry, forget it, you know, and he does mumbles. We just did an album with him and Snoop Dogg, doing rap and mumbles together, mixing the generations 40 years apart. It's wonderful. But the thing is, in the process of teaching Justin, he had diabetes and had both legs amputated, you know. It's an amazing story, absolutely touching. And now Justin is part of our group, Global Gumbo All-Stars, and we travel all over the world with these kids, the most talented young people on the planet, and Nikki's one of them. Nikki Yanofsky's one of them. And Nikki Yanofsky and a girl from Budapest last year, they blew Bobby McFerrin and Chick Corea off the stage. The critics said that because those are my brothers, you know. But they said stay home because these two little girls killed it. They were singing Aretha's Respect, you know. But, you know, what are you going to do?
This is someone that you didn't work with, but you got to know, Tupac.
Got to know is my daughter's fiance who was going to get married. In fact, he died in her arms, you know, with his lungs stapled up. She almost got killed on that, too, because Suge and Tupac were in the car. She was supposed to be sitting next to Tupac.
This was in Las Vegas, right?
Las Vegas, yeah. And thank God Tupac called her up and said, I just hit a crip, you know, so I'll pick you up later. And a car came by, his car, a convertible, with girls in it to tempt him out of the car. And they pulled off, and a guy with a bow tie and a machine gun, took him out. That would have been my daughter, you know. Her car was behind him with the security, and he died in her arms. And she went through, within a year and a half's time, she lost Tupac. She produced an event for my record company, Quest Records and Vibe magazine. 4 minutes after that, Biggie Small got shot. He was at that thing. He got killed by the Crips. And Aaliyah was just to stay, live at our home, you know. We took her to Fiji, stayed at Tony Robbins' house and everything. And later she got killed in that airplane accident. It was overloaded, you know. And it was a rough time for her. But she's recovered. She's working with her sister now, Rashida Jones. You know Rashida Jones? That's my baby lady. And she is on fire. And they wrote a TV show together. They don't stop, and they keep selling 22 episodes every week. She's got a production deal with Pixar and Warner's, I think, yeah. Great.
When Tupac started dating your daughter, there was a sit-down you had with him.
He wrote something in Source magazines or stuff about just very racist and very nasty. And my daughter from Harvard, Rashida, took him out. And she was speaking Harvardese at the end, but all my kids, I put the street in them. I made sure they had the street. Because you have to have the street, man. I don't care where you go, Yale, Harvard, Georgetown, whatever. Street is important. And I was born in the streets in Chicago in the 30s, and in Chicago with mafia every day, dead bodies every day, Tommy guns, stogies, piles of money in back rooms, like, amazing. I wanted to be a gangster till I was 11. I did. Because, you know, you want to be what you see. And all I ever saw were these guys, And the Jones was a gang. It was the black gangsters, most notorious gangsters. We're going to do a film on that, too, in the history of America, And in 1941, they had a policy racket and 5 and dime stores, and they made $110 million that year. That's like $1 billion back then. And Capone ran them out of Chicago. And my father was Jones, too, but he was a carpenter building their homes. And he came and got my brother and I out of the barbershop and put us on a trailway bus and took us to the Northwest. Thank God, because out there, that's when I changed my dreams of being a gangster to being a musician.
I'm glad. Now, at some point in all of this on the south, when you were living on the south side of Chicago, when you were living on the south side of Chicago as a kid,
Depression.
Did a gangster put a switchblade through your hand?
7 years old. I went on the wrong street. They had the Vagabonds, the Giles AC, and the Scorpions. I was in the wrong gang. And they nailed my hand to the fence with a switchblade knife, and they put an ice pick in my temple, man. But Chicago is a breeding ground for gangsters. I don't know what it is, man. It's, the name in Chicago is an Indian name that means onions and garlic, With garlic and mosquitoes there, but something about that place, it just breeds gangsters. I don't know what it is. It's amazing.
So what did your pop do?
All the way to Rahm Emanuel.
Tell me what your dad did when he found out about the
Well, my dad was a master carpenter, and he hit the kids in the head with a hammer about that, But it's a rough place, man. And we used to they didn't have guns back then. They didn't need them, because we'd take a clothespin and an inner tube rubber, try it with a string on a clothespin, and then take strings and put the tongue of in your shoe and put that in the string, and take a steel Aggie, and you could kill somebody with that, And they did. I mean, they were the roughest, and still are. I called Jennifer Hudson. You heard what happened to her with her mother and her brother and her nephew. Whatever. It's just something about it. I don't know.
Let's, if you're up for this, I want to talk a little bit about Michael Jackson. I want to talk a little bit about Michael Jackson. And can you tell the Socrates story? What? The Socrates story, when you were doing the Wiz.
Right, I met Michael at first at 12 years old. I met Stevie at 12, Aretha at 12, Devin at 12. It's amazing. We were doing the Wiz. I've done 5. Sidney Poitier and Sidney Lumet are the reason I got into movies. Sidney gave me 5 films and passed me the baton, because he had the same struggle as an actor, because he was blacklisted until Richard Brooks put him in what was that? Blackboard Jungle. And back then they didn't use black composers, no way. Duke Ellington did too, but mostly it was Eastern European names, Dmitri Tiomkin, and so forth. That's just the way it was, And what were we getting to talk about?
The Michael, and he was the Scarecrow?
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The pieces of paper.
I'm jazz mind, man. I get off track,
It's called improvisation.
Bebop, I can't help it. So Sidney called me when Michael was about 19 to do the film. I didn't really want to do it because I didn't like the script. I really didn't. I'd done 5 films with him before: Deadly Affair, Pawnbroken, all of that stuff, Anderson Tapes. But Sidney said the right words. He said, "You owe me." I said, "You got that right." And so I'll be there. And scoring a musical is another kind of a challenge, because everything you do has to be so accurate and right on, because they shoot the film to whatever you record. That's what the film is based on. So Michael, he came to my house and he said, "I just got to deal with Epic, my solo album." He said, "Maybe you could help me find a producer." I said, "Michael, I don't even want to talk about that. You don't even have a song in the picture now. The only thing you got is with Dinah Ross, and he's on down the road. We got to get a song for you." And so finally we got Charlie Smalls to write You Can't Win with the Crows. Anybody see that movie? Okay. So he got that in and everything else. And then I started to watch Michael and to see what we could do that hadn't been done before. Because Barry Gordy's always telling me he can't be any bigger. I said, "We'll see." So we were rehearsing in Brooklyn one day, all of the leads, you know, the Scarecrow and the Lion and Diana and all that. And Michael had his, this fluff and all of this junk in his chest, and he'd pull out little sayings by all the famous philosophers, Kierkegaard, etc. Then he'd say, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Socrates. So what the hell is Socrates? And he kept saying it, and if Diana Ross doesn't correct him, then that's something definitely wrong. But Diana Ross would definitely jump in there. And Sidney didn't correct him either, so I didn't want him to get used to it because it's not incorrect. And so I said, Smelly, I used to call him Smelly because he never said bad words. He used to Smelly Jelly instead of Funky, you know. So I called him Smelly. His mother got mad because she thought I was saying he smelled. Not at all, you know, it's just a colloquialism. And so Michael looked at me, I said, Smelly, it's Socrates. He said, really? It looked at me like a deer in the headlights, you know. I said, really? It's Socrates, man, okay? And when I saw that look in his eye, I said, I'd like to take a shot at your first album, you know. And we did, but after the picture, you know, because I watched him. This kid is incredible. He'd watch everybody, he knew everybody's dialogue. He'd have his makeup and stuff put on for 5 hours every day. He knew everybody's dialogue, all of their songs, all of their dance steps, everything. Donald Kael. And just a mind like I've never seen before. Never. You know, because at 12, when they got it at 12, you know they got it, really. God has touched him on the shoulder. And he, when I decided to do it, I said, man, I'm ready. And we did Off the Wall, you know. Then we did E.T. We did a song from E.T. Spielberg was asked me to do a favor and do a song for that. So I got Alan Marilyn Bergman and Rod Temperton. It doesn't get any better than that. And we did a song, and then they wanted us to do the whole album. I said, but Stephen, we're in the middle of Thriller, man. We've got the Paul McCartney single out now. It's #2, we gotta go, you know. He said, please, what are you gonna do? And so we did it. And then we finished up Thriller, and I'm gonna tell you.
How many copies has Thriller sold? How many copies has Thriller sold?
I don't know. They're talking everything between 69 and 104 million. I don't know, but I saw yesterday biggest all-time sales with everything from Lipitor to all that stuff, you know. And Thriller was in that, you know. That's all-time sellers.
You realize that if 104 million, that means every Canadian could have 3 copies of that album, that you would hit the entire Canadian population.
Vinyl.
Yes.
That's right. See, vinyl, because the technology is what kicked our butt. Now, there is no record business. It's all 90%, 8% piracy everywhere on the planet. Everywhere. And that's sickening, you know. Because iTunes, those things don't mean anything. It's single records, and the original process was singles were like 30-second spots for a package, you know, but they don't have that now. And, you know, as big as Adele or Justin Bieber and those guys get, they're selling like 2, 3, 6 million albums, man. Michael sell that in a weekend, you know. I'm telling you. But it's over, though. It really is. And we're getting ready to, hopefully, get involved in China with intellectual property with the president, hopefully. You know, that would be a dream.
I want to talk more about that in a minute, but just let me tie up the loose ends on Thriller. When you look back...
A lot of loose ends, man. You'll be here 3 weeks.
Now, what do you mean when you say that? What do you mean when you say that?
Ben, producing a record is 800 songs you go through first to get 9. And then you get 9. I always use this to make sure we go there. After I get to 9, I'd be very honest and pick what 4 are the weakest in relationship to the other 9. And take those out. And there were some big songs in there, Michael Cimbello's Carousel, all that stuff. Big hits with New Edition. But we put in Lady in My Life, wrote PYT, Human Nature, and Beat It. And that turned that album upside down with Billie Jean, and when we starting something in Thriller, it had everything in it, you know. But it's half of the secret is in the sequencing of an album, you know.
When I look back at it, and it is absolutely a brilliant album, but when I think about the brilliance, it's almost like it was a perfect storm. You had the best musicians on it, you had the best songs, you had the best recording engineer.
Songs, that's the key. I learned 50 years ago that a great song, that makes it happen, you know. A great song can make the worst singer in the world a star. A bad song, the 3 best singers in the world can't save it. That's the fact, you know. It cannot happen. So when you get a good singer and good songs, you got a good shot, you know. And we've always had, God has been lucky to get the great songs. James Ingram is still working all over the world with the first 2 records we made together in 1980, Just Once and 100 Ways. Everywhere in the world he works, all the time, you know. And that's a good feeling, you know. Michael, whatever. Brothers Johnson, you know.
There was one more album after Thriller. You did Bad?
Bad. And we also did We Are the World. Yeah.
So why did you stop producing him? Why did you stop producing Michael?
Well, I got fired, really. No, in a way I got fired because what happened is Michael was upset about only getting one Grammy on Off the Wall. And we tore it up on Thriller. Then in his bathroom, he had written on the wall, 100 million for the next one, man. You know, you got to be realistic, man. You're going to tell me that 30 million albums is a bomb. I'm sorry. I know better, you know. And he was after 100 million, but that's not, because the first album, he wrote two songs and 2.5 songs, since I had him do words to Brothers Johnson song, On the Floor. And he did Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and The Working Day and Night. And then the second one, he did 4 in Thriller. And then the last one, I said, Michael, I'd like you to try to do the whole album, but I want you to be very honest and really be open, because people are throwing a lot of stones at you now. And be open about it, you know, like Madonna's Papa Don't Preach, etc., whatever. And he came back with abortion papers. I said, no, that's not going to work. We can't sit there and sign on to abortion. That's not going to do it. So 4 of the songs, we had to get 3 or 4 of the songs outside, you know, but we had 7 top 5 hits in that thing, 5 number ones, you know. So you cannot. I would never in the world, anybody says they know what a record's going to do is lying. You just make a record that moves you. You don't think about what a survey says. These people like this, they like that. That doesn't work, you know. You have to do what comes from the bottom of your soul and what you believe in. It gives you goosebumps. It gives you goosebumps because if I don't like what I'm doing it for somebody else, and they don't like it, I'm in big trouble, you know. So you do what you believe in, and that goes back to Blink, doesn't it? Malcolm Gladwell.
I want to make sure that I've understood all of this, because with Bad and you guys parting ways, was it because the album didn't sell as many copies as he wanted? No. Well, that one of the things, but beyond that, I had Grandmaster Flash in the studio ready to go on an anti-crack song, because I saw rap coming. Ray Charles could see that, you know. My brother. And, you know, because we did the last Watch Prophets, I saw the Last Poets and all of the Sugar Hill Gang, the whole genesis of it. But it comes from Africa. And the problem is we don't have a minister of culture, man. It's one of the big problems in America. Germany and America don't have minister of culture. They don't know who they are. You know, the rappers don't know where they come from. And it's got to change, man. So we got a 400-person curriculum that we're going to change that. We're going to do a definitive American curriculum because it's very complex, man. All from Brazil to Cuba and everything else. And Africa is complex, but we'll have it. What was the original question? You had mentioned We Are the World, and part of the folklore of that session is a sign that you wrote.
Let me finish the other thing. I just forgot that. So I had these guys in the studio ready to go, and he told Frank DeLeo that I was losing it and didn't understand the market anymore.
Frank was his manager?
And because Quincy doesn't know rap is dead. This was 1987. okay? And we helped usher rap into the mainstream with Back on the Block. We won the best Grammy, the rap Grammy that year with Back on the Block, with me, to me, the godfather of rap, Melly Mel. Because Melly Mel never pimped the hood. Never pimped the hood. He wrote the white lines and all that stuff. But he was a real gangster. Most of the guys are full of shit, Wannabes, and they're trying to play gangster and all that stuff. But, P. Diddy got and he's my brother, don't get me wrong. I love what hip-hop is about, because it's like jazz. It's just bebop, bebop, doo-wop, and hip-hop. That's not a coincidence. That they're so similar, because it comes from the same place. But he said, I didn't know that rap was dead. It didn't happen until about 1992, really. I mean, really started to kick in, And so, anyway.
We're going to have a few minutes for some questions in a moment or two, so if you've got something, you might want to ponder it, and then we'll have a chance to ask Quincy. But I just wanted to go back to We Are the World and the folklore, the story about this sign that you had made.
We didn't need that sign. No, it was overblown. Those people came to give up their hearts.
But was there a sign?
Huh?
Did you write that sign?
Yeah, I did.
What was it?
Check your egos at the door. Yeah, but but you don't need to, because when they walk in that room, we were at A&M Records, the old Charlie Chaplin studios, and you see Ray Charles, and you see Bob Dylan, and Stevie Wonder, and all that stuff, Bruce Springsteen. You don't need to tell anybody to check the egos, because did you see Doonesbury cartoons on that stuff? It was funny, because I said, Ken Cragen, what's happening, man? Where's everybody? He said, they're out to the coat check, And one guy said, I'm going to need a receipt if I check my ego. And Don Ross said, I don't. It was hilarious, man.
I can't think of a more fitting way to end the CMW than Quincy.
Live every day. I wish you all long, long lives with tons and tons of love to share, health to spare, and friends who care. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to give great thanks to Ross Porter from Jazz FM 91 here in Toronto. Ross, great job, well done. Q, this was Q's Joint tonight.